Hey Lance, this is Cody, and I'm going to see if this video helps you learn how to fly the Project Opensky 737-700. You asked this video focused on how to use the autopilot flight director, so I'll try to bring most of the attention to it. For this flight, I'm going to show you a flight from, we're currently at Dallas Love Field. We're sitting on runway 31 left, and we're going to go to Austin. And I went ahead and created the flight in the flight planner. Just went ahead and entered the route, so it's already in our GPS. And our first waypoint is going to be the triple TVR, and it's going to take us on south to Austin. And I did this because at first I was going to go ahead and shoot a video of just flying the pattern in Dallas and showing you how the autopilot works, but then I realized in order for you to see how it fully works, I want to go ahead and show you a flight. This video will probably be broken up into 3 15-minute segments because the software that I'm using will only record up to 15 minutes. So I'll probably just go ahead and make a video break and we'll pick right back up where I leave off unless I otherwise say so. So a quick overview of the flight. We're going to do a flight from Dallas Love Field to Austin. It's really short. Like I said, I'll probably get it done in 3 15-minute segments, and we'll focus on showing you how the autopilot flight directors work. So before we begin, I'll just give you a real brief overview of the autopilot. There's 3 parts to the autopilot on this aircraft. The main part, the part that you use a lot when you're flying, is the MCP, which is the mode control panel right here. This is how you input commands to the aircraft that you want the aircraft to follow. The other 2 parts to this aircraft are the flight director, which are the magenta bars here on the PFD that basically act as a compass telling you the pitch and the role that the aircraft wants to be in to maintain a desired flight attitude that you command into the MCP. And the third part of it is the FMA, or the flight mode enunciators, which are located here on top of the PFD. They're blank right now because we don't have anything put into the MCP, but they'll light up indicating what parts of the MCP are active, and it's typically altitude and speed, and then over here it just shows the autopilot's active. So to begin the flight, you'll want to prepare the autopilot for flight. Let's go ahead and assume we've picked up our departure clearance from Love Clearance Delivery, and they've given us a climb and maintain. Before we actually begin all this, I'm gonna preface the video. This is just gonna be real basic and cover the autopilot and basic flight. We won't get to the more advanced stuff. This is just to help you get your first flight done. So let's go ahead and say Dallas Love Clearance gave us a clearance up to 6,000 feet and expect flight level 23010 minutes after departure. So we're going to want to go ahead and set up the autopilot. So we're going to climb to 6,000. So we're going to go ahead and set 6,000 in the altitude hold selection mode. So what you'll do is you'll roll up whatever altitude you want to climb to in 6,000. In this case, it's going to be 6,000 feet, and it's going to be shown on your speed tape as the target altitude. So whatever you roll in here, as you can see over here on the first officer's PFD, whatever you roll in here is reflected on the speed tape. It's just another way of maintaining situational awareness, kind of keeping everything right there in front of you. And we want to go ahead and arm autopilot, so we're going to go ahead, actually we'll arm the autopilot at the end. Kind of make things easy for you. Your heading selector, which is really straightforward, really simple, and I'll go ahead and say it's really more difficult to explain these things than it is to show you. So I'll try and let the video do most of the talking. Your heading select mode is real simple. Whatever you dial in for your heading select, the airplane will turn and maintain that heading. In this case, we're going to go ahead and have the aircraft maintain a heading of 312 degrees, so we'll just roll it into 312, which is runway heading. So the aircraft will basically maintain runway heading after departure. The nav GPS mode selector basically tells the autopilot which navigation method to follow. Nav mode is used for following things like tracking VOR radials, shooting localizer approaches or back course approaches. And GPS mode is what you'll use most of the time going from point A to point B, kind of like we are today going from Dallas to Austin. You'll switch it to GPS mode, and then the autopilot will track whatever you have set in the GPS, which in this case is the route that we entered from the flight planner. But we'll leave it in GPS mode because we'll hand fly the aircraft for takeoff and departure, and then when we give the aircraft control via autopilot, it will automatically search for GPS select. So we're going to go ahead and arm GPS select. Your speed modes, these are a little different from the rest of the autopilot. You arm it with the auto throttle arm switch, and then it has two command modes. N1 is used primarily on more complicated aircraft like the PMDG 737 MGX, but you can also use it on this aircraft. It's not as accurate. One little quirk about the speed selector in the autopilot on this aircraft is it's really slow to capture speeds. You don't want to break speed limits, like you do not want to accelerate past 250 knots below 10,000 feet. So you'll actually want to set this a little slower. That way the autopilot will catch that speed, and then you want to work your way up to it, simply because it's really slow. I know that doesn't make sense right now. I'll have to show you a little later. It's a bug within the aircraft, and I don't know if there's a patch out for it or not. I'll have to look. So we'll go ahead and set 235 knots in the speed mode selector, because whenever we're climbing, we're just going to go ahead and climb at 235 knots. So for this particular flight, we'll arm the auto throttle, speed select, and climb at 235 knots. The other mode you can use is the N1 mode, which, like I said, is used on other complicated aircraft, but you can also use it on this aircraft. You can find the numbers for your given temperature and takeoff weight in the flight manual that I emailed you earlier. And by the way, all the speeds that I'll quote in these videos will come from that flight manual. Things like flap speeds, V speeds, things like that. So you arm the auto throttle, you'll select whatever N1 you need for your given flight conditions, temperature, takeoff weight, things like that. In this case, it's going to be 83% N1. So you would select 83% N1 using the N1 select knob. You would arm the auto throttle, and you would select the N1 mode selector, and then the throttles would accelerate to maintain an engine speed of 83% N1. It would be your responsibility as pilot to maintain airspeed with pitch. If you want to go faster, you've got to decrease your pitch. If you want to go slower, you've got to increase your pitch. So, we've got the autopilot set for departure. Oh, one more thing I guess I need to mention to you is course. Course is not really important right now. It's important when you're tracking VORs or shooting an ILS approach. I'll show you more of this in the third video, but for the overview video, I want to keep it real simple. So we're going to go ahead and arm the autopilot for departure. So we've got the flight directors on, which you can see the magenta bars popped up. These are, like I said, they're going to give you visual guidance, and go ahead and imagine that these black bars, they're basically representing the wings of the aircraft, and this pink bar, this pink horizontal bar, magenta horizontal bar, is what the aircraft wants those wings at. So you can follow this if you're hand flying it, except for on the departure you want to hand fly it based on pitch. And one other note I guess I should mention is the aircraft is really slow to roll. I'm sure you've probably already figured that out if you've played around with it any. You can give it full left or right command input, and it takes forever to roll there. So you want to be ahead of the aircraft if possible. Just always be thinking ahead. So this is how you will prep the autopilot for a real basic departure. And now we're going to arm it. So we're going to go ahead and arm altitude hold. And the way you arm it is you select the button that you want for the mode. So in this case, we want to arm altitude hold. As you can see in the flight mode annunciator, the FMA altitude hold is armed. And we also want to arm heading select to maintain the heading of 312 after departure. And heading select is armed in the FMA. We want to arm the auto throttles, which is this switch right here. You do not want to arm it with these because the throttles will react instantaneously and either accelerate to maintain the speed or the engine speed that you have set. So auto throttle is armed, heading selector is armed, altitude hold is armed, and with altitude hold, vertical speed hold work in correlation with each other to control the pitch of the aircraft. You select a target with altitude select mode, and then you tell the aircraft what rate of climb or rate of descent you want to use to get to that target. We'll go ahead and use 1,800 feet in this case. There is no real set number you can use. You can use 2,100 feet, you can use 1,500 feet, but it really comes down to personal preference. If you're really light, you can go ahead and roll this thing up to 2,400 feet. But whenever we give the autopilot control of the aircraft, we'll just take a real leisurely 1,800 feet per minute. So, you would typically do all this at the gate after you receive your IFR clearance to whatever airport you're going to. So, we've got the autopilot set and it's armed. All we have to do to give control of the aircraft to the autopilot is push Command Alpha and speed, and the airplane will fly itself. However, since Command Alpha and speed are off, we are hand flying the aircraft. You will typically hand fly the aircraft during the departure and the climb. So, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here. We will pick up right here at the departure and climb out.